Well, happy Friday, everyone. This is Tracy Lawrence for the Good Kids Club podcast. You all know me. I'm Tracy Lawrence. I am the author of Dementia Sucks, and I am the caregiver's caregiver, and I want everyone to be taking better care of themselves. I'm very excited today to be joined by Rena Chowla. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to correct the pronunciation, but Chowla, yes,
Yes.
okay.
Hmm.
And and I see Beth is joining us, so I'm going to allow her in. And and so today, I'm excited that we're going to be covering this topic of brain health and how to take better care of your brain and the brain of your loved ones. Because as you guys know, both of my parents succumbed to dementia, and I have spent a lot of my adult life since taking care of my parents focused on finding ways that I can preserve my brain, which I have a great deal of affection for, and rely upon a great deal for my being able to function in life, as we all do. Um, and so today, I'm going to be talking with Rena because she specializes in brain health and she's got a real passion for it. We met many years ago in New Jersey before she made her trek to the West Coast, and so I'm very excited to see her today, and excited to share her perspective with you guys because I think you're going to find some of the information very helpful. And so now I would like to introduce my friend Rena. Hi, Rena.
Hey Tracy, how are you doing? Thank you for
I'm
having me
great.
on the show.
My pleasure. I'm so glad to see you, and it's wonderful that we live in a time when we can do this. That we can actually like see each other and talk to each other and share great information with people who could really use it.
That is certainly true. And that is certainly true. I couldn't have agreed more. And having lived in New Jersey for 20 plus years, and I think 16 of those years I spent from idea to and the concept to actually building out platform and programs that were at the time they were ahead of the time, and it only took 16 years for brain training and mental health acceptance to become an overnight success. So
Yes, it's so
that,
true. It's so true.
right, and
It's
then you
huge.
can only run on in that manner, in that kind of a topic, when you have a personal connection, you have a passion to make an
Yes.
impact. So and that was my motivation. You don't understand it, that's okay, but those people who can use this my services, they do, and I'm okay just talking to them for the time being, while you take your time to understand the importance and the benefits and how to's of brain health and brain training. So I'm excited that the world has shifted in the last 16 years, particularly at a great pace in the last 2 years, I would say, since the
Yeah.
pandemic. And we've seen this across the board, a lot of conversations happening at a lot of influential levels. So it's a great time to be having this conversation. Thank you, Tracy.
Yes, my pleasure. So, Rena, tell people a little bit about what you actually do, what your business entails.
Certainly. So, my work took me from, like I said, idea. At the time there was no data or statistics available to kind of, establish the truth behind the need for the services that I was trying to formulate. There was a need that people were aging at, people age every day, us included, and I was looking at the lifestyles of convenient and comfort and really social isolation, or
Mm.
in the name of independent living, impacting the ability for people to have an optimal level of brain health. Why I was able to see that is, I'm a recovered TBI uh, person myself. So years ago, I had multiple concussions that resulted in traumatic brain injury, and my journey was made me particularly sensitive to people who have lost or the ability or their cognitive abilities, you know, in whatever, to whatever extent and degrees. So I was seeing that, and I'm fully, you know, it took several years, but I'm fully intelligent and the ability to, you know, memorize and recall as normal as it can be. So I wanted to really put that experience of many years, that intelligence in a shareable, repeatable, executable format, and something that, you know, people would embrace. So in that journey along the way, and what you're seeing right now is a fully formed articulation. At the time, it was like, I would like to do brain training, and people would, wait a minute, brain and training are not used in the sentence together. So long story short, I tried to put the major influences on brain health, or lack thereof, to put at the front and center, and create a regimen, a program that people can learn and then adapt to their daily lifestyle and take it with them. So my goal is to empower people, give them the tools that are necessary for them to now run with it.
Right.
And you know, there's, like I said, every day lots of people are aging, their brain is, you know, they're recognizing, my brain is not functioning the way it used to. And if you can catch them at that moment and tell and share these training programs with them, they're going to be able to embrace and extend the acumen of their cognitive function for a longer period of time.
Fantastic. Now, I know, Rena, that I've done a lot of research into the brain, obviously,
Yes.
because you know it's in my interest to understand what happens to the brain, particularly when dementia takes hold of a person. And I know that there are therapies and practices that have been utilized by a number of doctors and clinicians to try to restore cognitive function.
Mm-hmm.
I also know that it's particularly difficult to do this with people who have dementia, especially
Yes.
later dementia, because
Correct.
we have something that's called oh good, and there it goes. I've forgotten the term, but when your brain can actually like reroute to different sections.
Correct.
So when there's a damaged section of
Yeah.
your brain can actually say, you know what, that's not working, but there's another part of the brain that is, so I'm going to connect there.
Correct.
But it's more difficult with dementia because dementia doesn't. It's not a trauma to a particular portion of the brain, especially when you're talking about Alzheimer's disease,
Right.
where it's inflammation
Right.
and the brain is kind of incrementally degraded over time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we also know that if you catch someone at the early stages,
Right.
if you deal with the inflammation that's causing the cognitive impairment, that you can actually you can restore cognitive function with the right procedures. So have you been able to work with people who are in that kind of situation?
Yeah, I think it is important. I understand what you're saying, Tracy, but I think it is important to set a context here,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
because the brain, since our entire life is governed by, you know, this executive organ called the brain, of course, along with the heart, we need to put some context here. We're talking about a wide spectrum of a lifespan. We're
Yes.
not talking, at least I am not talking about people who are unfortunately in the dementia, Alzheimer's activities space,
Right.
because my work is primarily preventative. My
Sure.
work is enabling the delay of the stage, you know, when a brain can, and I don't want to use the word inevitable because there's a lot of elderly people whom I know who
Sure.
are in their 80s and 90s, and it's not an inevitable outcome for them to
Right.
get into
Right.
the
Right.
dementia zone. So my work is preventative. My work is impacts on the time scale delay of that happening, that event happening.
Right.
So,
Prevention is
so
always
that
better
being
than
said, I'm not
trying.
talking of restoring the cognitive abilities of people who are currently in dementia.
Right, right, right.
People,
Well, yeah,
so let's start from an active adult who is and starting to become, there's a life cycle, there's a stages in life cycle.
sure.
So there are adults who are fitness oriented, who are wellness oriented. So we are mostly talking about our bodies. We're not necessarily talking about our brain in the beginning. And then we start to miss a certain function here and there, the brain calls attention to itself. And if you listen to the call, and we then, there are people I know who are in their mid 40s, and for example, there's a fireman I was working with, and he was 49. His ability to memorize the codes when they needed to fill out the forms after a firefighting incident, for example, led him to seek my services and ask me what is it that he can do, because I'm only 49. And if I can't remember the codes off the top of my head, which I was able to previously, then, that's a matter of concern, and I applauded him, because not too many people in their mid 40s are looking to acknowledge, let alone look for services, that there is something that they need to do about. So
Yeah, people
that's
prefer to
that's
deny
the
that there's a
demographic we are
problem.
talking about. Too often people in their late 50s or 60s, and I don't want to uh, tag people by an age bracket, but it's just how the numbers work. People in their 50s and 60s who can and should take particular care of their cognitive function to delay the, again, I use the word inevitability, because it's a physiological function. And
Yes,
like any muscle and any trait that we have, memory and recall can, will be on the decline as we age as well.
sure.
So those are the prime category of people who and who should be partaking services like brain training.
Right.
And it's a great thing that companies are jumping on the wellness bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading statistics the other day. About 2/3 of American corporations, for example, have been looking into or supporting wellness
Yes.
screening services, annual wellness exams for their workforce, but they center around diabetes, obesity, hypertension,
Sure.
weight, weight issues. So that's really, really good. I'm yet to find the brain or mental health getting onto that statistic that corporations are focusing on mental health screenings or on an annual basis as well. We need that start to happen. It's happening. For example, Aetna's CEO is really himself into the mental wellness,
Mm-hmm.
meditation, and those kind of things. But we need to see that jumping across the band. Yeah.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, in addition, employers have also, they tend to focus on helping people cope with addiction and
That's true.
and alcoholism, and that's been my experience in the employee assistance world,
Yes.
especially in New Jersey. That's that they're all about addiction and alcoholism, but when it comes to providing help for family caregivers,
Hmm.
there no one's home. Uh, yeah, even
That's
though
sad,
everybody
but
is
that's
at home.
true. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big problem, and helping employers to understand, I applaud, as do you, the propensity to provide wellness guidance and benefits. It's important to understand what wellness benefits could be of most of the highest level of support to the employees, and I think that's where there's a big disconnect.
Yes.
And there have been studies that show that while many employers think that they're doing a terrific job supporting their employees with the benefits that they offer, the
Mhm.
employees beg to differ.
Mm.
So and it's showing up
Yeah.
in the trends where so many employers are seeking qualified help. The last time I looked, there were over 8 million unfilled jobs, and and you see it everywhere. If you walk down the street, you see signs on retail establishments that say, "Please be patient with us. We don't have enough people."
Yeah. Yeah.
So so it's a big problem, and if we help employers to recognize where they are deficient in supporting their employees, I think that it will pay enormous dividends, because the employees will feel heard and supported, and will enjoy working more for people who really understand and support what they do.
You're absolutely right, Tracy. In my experience, as well as I was building out the practice, we established studios and scaled to multiple locations. Uh, in this whole spectrum of mental wellness and training, for example, there is the individual themselves who need those kind of services. Then the caregivers, then one degree removed from actual services, but they are the primary component that enable these services to take place. Bless you. So the caregiving, and my parents, I was a young teen. My parents were sole caregivers for my grandmother. God bless her. Really, really dear to me. One of the major catalysts in establishing this side of my practice. They were caregiving for my grandmother, and it was financially, socially, emotionally, and spiritually draining for them.
Mm-hmm.
As a young teenager, I did everything I could, between managing school and helping my parents, because I was seeing firsthand what they were going through. And even though there are siblings, but the primary caregiver tends to bear the most of, and it's a very complex, very important, and very layered topic here. So it becomes an isolated journey, because what you're going through, you can't really communicate to your siblings to pitch in, and the nature of the person who is in dementia or Alzheimer's is such that they do better with one set of primary caregivers. So this becomes like I said, socially, emotionally, spiritually, financially, personally, very draining on them.
Oh yes.
And if we want a robust workplace, and if we find this generation, the demographic of caregiver who are not only taking care of elderly parents, parents-in-law, or family members who are in this situation, they're also at the same time taking care of young family, their
Mm-hmm.
own, their own children. So they have these commitments at a 360-degree level. So the only recourse, unfortunately, if things come to a head, I've seen many women taking a back step from their careers,
Oh yes.
leaving the workforce and just jumping both feet in to caregiving.
It's a
And
very
that's just
common
the
thing.
beginning. That's just the beginning of the journey. So there's one paycheck less. There is one sense of identity that is under crisis, because now they're day in and day out. It's back to being a parent one more time, because I remember how it was when you were taking care of your baby, and we demanded women be supported during their parenting journey. Now it's the even one step further. So it's not only the economy loses talented people, it loses the voice of people who are actually in the middle of that situation, who can contribute to this discussion on an ongoing basis, make themselves heard, mark their presence. We also lose the ability to offer a constructive, guided, and supportive supplemental activities that would cause the least amount of stress and least amount of burden on our otherwise, I would say, overburdened mental health services in the country. What do you think? I think
Absolutely.
that was a lot to chew.
No, but you're spot on, and we're not acknowledging nearly well enough how disproportionately caregiving impacts women, particularly women in the workforce, and how if an employer, in many cases, the woman who's in that situation is not sharing that information that she's caregiving with
Correct.
her employer because she's afraid of losing her job or being
That's
treated
true.
as something less than because of
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
that's adding stress onto her because and I've lived this, and this is one of the reasons I do what I do.
Yes.
Because there is so much pressure from the employer to perform, to be productive, to do your job to an optimum level. And if for any reason you have to take time off and it's an emergency,
Right.
then suddenly you're just not as sharp and reliable a person as they would want you to be.
Yeah, and I think, and I would like to add further to this, having been a small business owner and a net employer myself, and I was in precisely your kind of a situation also, Tracy. So, it's not just the employer demanding the worker to be a certain level of performance. As productive professionals ourselves, we also hold ourselves to a certain level of productivity, a certain level of effectiveness in our jobs. And it's not just women, men too, when you're doing work, you want to be seen as the thorough professional that you are. And if there are situations that put a drain on you or, resist from performing, that is additional stress, right? And
Absolutely.
you're absolutely right. We would not like to talk much about our outside work requirements or responsibilities that can be perceived as, we are giving anything less than optimal. So that's so many levels and triggers for stress. And this, I'm talking from statistics and data pre-pandemic. In the two
Sure.
years or 1.5 years since, now that people are home, there is additional level of stresses, working. So the hours are longer because we're packing in more. We're not taking coffee breaks and lunch breaks any longer. We have
Mhm.
back-to-back meetings scheduled on our calendars. I know I am. And then there's kids to manage. Teachers are teaching children in classrooms, but they also have their kids whom they have to handle because their children are in online classes as well. So that's a really tricky situation. So I think when you talk about great resignation, for example, we need to peel the layers on that onion and find out how many of those were because people just gave up. I just can't deal with this.
Yep.
And I just I would take a pay cut. I just don't want to deal with all these stresses because I want to do one job and do it well.
Yes.
Right? So we don't know if the great resignation is because lots of people are making Bitcoin millions and they've come upon money.
I'm gonna say a big hard no to that one, but
Yes.
I think it's a combination of things, but I
Yes.
think that the
Yeah.
impact of
Yeah.
family caregiving is
Yeah.
being severely underestimated
Yeah.
in the calculus around the situation. Now,
Correct.
I wanted to ask you because we're going through this so quickly, but I wanted to ask you if you could please give some tips for things that people can do to enhance their brain health. Are there exercises that you recommend, or are there what kinds of um, guidance do you suggest for people who are feeling like they want to improve their cognitive function or who are concerned about losing cognitive function?
Sure. Thank you for asking that very important question, Tracy. It took a few years in the beginning to narrow down the whole spectrum of activities that, can influence brain to the top five and create a wellness circuit, for optimal brain health. Uh, but before that, I would also like to highlight that um, there are exercises that you can find online. At the time, there was no resources available, so we created our own ready, pocket guides and stuff like that. Look for neuroplasticity, brain training, and things like that, and you will
That's
find.
the word I was looking for before. Thank you. Neuroplasticity.
Yes, yes, yes. I used to get calls from my clients, because I used to do a lot of speaking engagements at a lot of different locations because I wanted to like Forrest Gump my way into wherever people were and highlight that you should train your brain, and here is why and here is how. But they used to call me when Nintendo released their Brain Age game, which became their number one, their bestseller video game. So I was a little too ahead at the time. But look up neuroplasticity. You'll find a ton of resources from doctors, neurologists that would talk about down to the levels of brain training, how you can do this. There are video games, but here is what my top 5 are. Number 1 is, my first circuit is physical training. So do a little bit of, I know you're busy. I know you're busy taking care. You're trying to make a schedule, but it goes haywire because there's so many demands on your time. And we're talking to caregivers here, right? And for all adults, actually. Dedicate some time to, whether it is walking, whether it is lifting some weights, whether it is doing some breathing exercises, doing some warm-ups, and actually running, whatever you think is heart healthy is brain healthy too. Because what it does, it makes the heart pump more oxygen will travel to the extremities. Our brain consumes more than 60% of the oxygen in the entire body. So if you're not pumping enough oxygen, our brain is not getting enough oxygen, and it is not getting enough sustenance for functioning. So if you're finding yourself a little angry, a little snappy, a little short fused, take a few deep breaths, walk, jump, do some jumping jacks, whatever. Just get the heart pumping. Number 2 is brain training. So physical training is a big component of the brain training circuit I created. Then is brain training. So you do some Sudoku puzzles, do some crosswords, listen to something that you've not listened to before, something that enriches your brain, gives you more intelligence and more knowledge, which will help you build intelligence and get those neurons firing. Right. So do something new, because if everything that we do is governed by nerves and neurons. So if you stop typing, for example, these finger point, the nerves at the end of your fingertips probably haven't gotten enough activity. So those synapses are probably falling asleep. Start writing. Don't just be typing. Read not just on your iPad, but also in a physical book, from a physical book. Try writing with your left hand, or a non-dominant hand. Brush. I think Dr. Katz said famously, brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand, and you do a good job of it. So those things actually call in our brain to form or build or grow or strengthen new connections in the brain. So think of the brain like a trapeze artist net. The more you do these things, the more the richer the connections, the tighter the braiding would be of your neurons and synapses, and the better our brain would be. Third is diet and nutrition. I can't emphasize enough, as close to raw as possible. We don't have fruit trees in our backyards anymore, but we can go to the store and get some fresh fruit and vegetables, and make sure it is available, ready to eat on your countertop. Eat good and feed good as well.
Yes, avoid the processed foods, folks.
It's easier said than done, Tracy.
I know.
I have to confess. That's sometimes my go-to as well, and I don't like depriving myself of some of my indulgences. So I.
Sure, but the rule of thumb is to kind of stay on the outside of the store aisles, right?
Of the store. That is so true. That is so true. Yes, and
that's
do
where
as
you're going to find the vegetables and the fruit
without feeling guilty. If you've only had 2 servings of the stipulated 5 servings of fresh fruit and veggies, that's all right. It's at least it's not 0. So send yourself good messages, not messages of guilt. Tell yourself that I've done enough. It's good. I'm doing well. I'm given the cards I've been dealt. I'm trying to make the best. So
Sure.
So we move from diet and nutrition over to yoga and meditation. So yoga would be, would be along the lines of same thing, physical training, but meditation. Find a quiet spot and you do some deep breathing exercises. Do
Mm-hmm.
some alternate nostril breathings. Open one nose, deep breath, hold, clamp it down, release from the other, and reverse. Hold. So I just did it in a little bit of a fast forward motion, but wait for a count of 5 to 10, and then release. What this 5 minutes of doing alternate nostril breathing, there's 72,000 nerve endings in our body. So this forces cleansing of those 72,000 nerve endings in our body. Thereby, you will notice a definite change in your state of being, in your state of alertness,
Mm-hmm.
as once you come out of this practice, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, do this 2 3 times in a day. While you're waiting for in the pickup line for kids, while you're waiting at the pharmacy to pick up or you're stuck in traffic, just do some deep breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good. And last but not the least is sleep. Sleep is extremely important, easier said than done, but I kid you not, if you're sending yourself good messages, you're complimenting yourself, you're doing a little bit extra, as you're walking, even if you're brushing and you catch some jumping jacks in the bathroom as you're hitting the shower. That's good. That is good. And over time, all of these steps during the day will help you ease into a good sleep. Use chamomile, as a chamomile tea bag next to your pillow, or chamomile flowers if you can get them.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things are available online, that you can find. But the biggest thing that I would say is, don't be lonely. If when you were a younger parent and you would recruit the help of a babysitter, find a friend, find someone who an aide will come in and help you, just take the burden off you so you can go shopping, do some retail therapy, just hit the nature, be where maybe in the neighborhood park for an hour.
Oh yeah.
Those are great things.
Yes. And socialization. You know.
Socialization is the number one influencer, and that was the whole reason why I opted to create an actual studio. I invested in a wheelchair friendly, huge location that was accessible, and we had a window and a room from where caregivers could just sit and congregate amongst themselves, exchange some notes, just sip a cup of tea, and also watch all the exercises and the programs that their loved ones were going through in our studio. Because socialization, even among people who are undergoing brain training, is important, because being a person with a cognitive need or a cognitive gap is isolating too. So they need their socialization, and
Yes.
caregivers need their socialization.
Yes.
Hire
Caregiving is
someone.
yes.
Yes.
Caregiving is very isolating. So
Yes,
yes.
yes, absolutely. I know we're on top of the hour, so I'll let you. I think I really wanted to share all the intelligence and the wisdom of the program and experiences of my thousands of customers. I don't call them customers, they were in our care. So
Yes.
yeah, they were our friends.
Rena, that's wonderful. And just so people can find you, is there a website they should visit, or is there some way that they should contact you?
Yes, so you can contact me, reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect with me there. As I mentioned to you, we got out of the brick and mortar solution out of our 8 locations, about a year and a half ago. We're building out a platform. So our website, what used to be thebrainstudio.com, still would be, but we are undergoing a huge pivot and a platform change. So I'm a little out of pocket on email, but you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. If you like, we you can you let's see if we can quickly get your LinkedIn link in the chat so that people can find you. I'm just going to grab it real quick.
Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm going to copy Rena's LinkedIn into the chat, and so anybody who's on the chat can save that to their computer. And what I'll also do is I'll include that link under the replays and in the description for the podcast and the YouTube replay, so people will be able to find you and reach out to you on LinkedIn. And we do have, I'll share it with the Good Kids with Careers group as well. So
Thank you.
we'll
Thank
be
you. And
able to find you
I'm
there.
happy to speak to employers. I'm happy to speak to caregivers themselves. And I'm happy to speak to other entrepreneurs who are in the wellness industry. And I have a wide network of those entrepreneurs such as yourselves as well. Happy to communicate, happy to connect, and happy to form panels so that we can maximize our outreach for this very important topic.
Absolutely. Rena, I'm so glad you could join me today. And I know that people who are watching, Beth, thank you for joining us. I hope you're able to hear us, and this was worth your time. I know like my good kids like to watch the replays and listen to the podcast. So thank you all for joining us today on the Good Kids podcast. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and look for me next week when we'll have another great topic. Thanks so much. Take
Thank
care.
you and have a great day.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Rena, and thank you, good kids, and enjoy your weekend. Take
Thank
good
you.
care of you.
Take care. Yes. Bye bye.
Bye bye now.